Here in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, ready to kick off our Guardians Against Ticks program. We have all of our tick experts here, our bug biting team, and we're ready to provide you guys with the best, most accurate, and up-to-date information. Hi. Good. Can you just start out, introduce yourself, your name, your background?
My name is Dr. Thomas Mather, Tom. In the tick world, most people know me as the tick guy. Years ago, it was like there was a Visa commercial that said, you may not know me, but you know what I do. And so I just felt, all right, it's easier. You don't have to remember my name. Just call me the tick guy. It's fine. I'm a professor of public health entomology at the University of Rhode Island. I've been here since 1992, so I feel like I'm still the young guy, but I'm really the old guy.
You're the veteran.
And I've been a researcher on ticks and tick-borne diseases since 1983. So I get a kick out of, when I have students here now, it's like they weren't even a gleam in their parents' eyes in 1983 when I started doing this work. So
you've seen it go from the beginning all the way to where we're at now.
I mean, they had just identified the causative agent of Lyme disease in 1981 and 82. And so when we started, every question that needed to be answered, we were able to ask because no one knew anything. Like, oh, what kind of tick transmits the germ? Where do they get it from? So all of these things were, fair game for research. And so it was almost easy because we could just look at what did we know about other tick-borne diseases and what did we not know about Lyme disease, and just
start
clicking them off,
figuring out. What have you noticed being the biggest change from when you started to now, and what are some of the issues you're seeing as far as communities understanding what's really happening and what they should be doing?
I feel like the tick-borne disease issue has gotten much worse. Somewhere around 2012, I think it occurred to me just doing outreach work. I do a lot of continuing education, especially with the veterinary community, and I was at a gig and someone asked me that same thing, and I said, well, I think there's more ticks in more places now than there ever was, because I had just stopped alongside of a road just before that, and it's a road that I've gone by. It's between here, the university, and my house, and I'm like, oh, it looks like there should be ticks. I'd always think that I should go there and collect ticks, and I never found any ticks. And all of a sudden, that particular time, it was like I took a step out of the car and I had like 40 ticks, and it was like, and that has continued to be a good spot. And I started looking in more and more places, and we just see the distribution of human cases of tick-borne diseases. It used to be that you'd get them if you were in rural areas and deep woods and stuff like that. And then suburbs became sort of the focus. And then now peri-urban situations are, it's like now we've got, islands of wildlife in urban centers, and the ticks have managed to get there. And so every time you've stepped up this sort of change, more people, the human concentrations are greater.
Right.
And so shouldn't be a surprise that human disease has gotten more. There's just a lot more, so it used to be most people knew about ticks, but they didn't really know about disease. And then now they knew about Lyme disease and associated that with every type of tick, which we now know is not really right. But it's like, well, how do we get to this question? And so, I don't know, it was several years ago, I was doing a TV interview in Baltimore, and I knew from previous experience that whatever the newscaster is going to ask me is on the teleprompter that the producer has put on there.
Right.
And they don't tell me, but they know what they're going to say. But about 4 minutes before we went live, this guy looked at me and said, so what do you want to talk about? And I said, probably whatever the producer has put on the teleprompter. And he said, no, really. And I said, well, it occurs to me that everyone knows something about ticks, but unfortunately what they know is often just wrong enough to still leave them at risk.
Right.
And his eyes got big and wide, and he says, I don't really understand what you mean. I said, will you tell me 2 things you know about ticks? And without a a moment hesitation. He said, well, I know they drop out of trees onto your head and they die in the winter. And I said, and unfortunately, you'd be just strong enough to still be at risk, because while you were worrying about which tree the ticks were going to drop out, you would be missing all of the ones crawling up your legs. And if they died in the winter, where would next year's ticks come from anyway?
Right.
And he's like stunned and said, we should talk about that. Now, we didn't talk about that. We talked about what was on the teleprompter.
Right.
But as I was sort of thinking about this on my flight home, I was like, there may be something to this being just wrong enough thing, because my goal as an outreach educator could be, how do I make people just right enough?
Right.
Right. And so it sort of gave me a new focus, I think.
That's very similar to why we began the Guardians Against Ticks. We got into the tick space because our own community was using our other product for ticks, which prompted us to say, wait a minute, proper and prompt tick removal is critical. How and what and why, and that brought us down a rabbit hole. So when we launched our tick remover, same situation. People are spreading misinformation. They're just enough where they have some of the information, but it's inaccurate, and they're spreading it, causing more confusion. Whereas if we can get the right information out to the public and create a system or a protocol and walk people through, no matter what stage they're experiencing, whether it's going, out on a walk in the woods, what do you do after as far as tick checks and getting, the ticks off your clothing properly, all the way to what do you do if you got bit by a tick?
One of the things that I've learned that I think is probably what we've focused now on for the last several years is a lot of public education about ticks, and probably a lot of things, but all I know is about ticks. That's what the tick guy does, right?
Yeah.
And is that we do a lot of just-in-case learning. So I'm going to have you at a library talk, or I'm going to give you a pamphlet or something, and just in case this happens to you.
Right.
But what I've learned is that there's a forgetting curve. It was something done in psychology, in the 1800s, but it's still true today, that if you don't practice something that you've learned within 6 days, you will have forgotten 75% of it. Now, it's not like a whole chunk of 75% drops out, but what happens, at least in our business with ticks, is that the details are the things that get lost. So at a just-in-case learning event, I might have told people to use repellent to protect themselves with permethrin in it on your clothes. They didn't go out and buy it that afternoon, but they were at the store maybe a week or 2 weeks later, and they said, oh, that tick guy, he said something about repellent, and there's one on sale right there, and it has, geraniol in it or something like that. Oh, that seems good. It smells nice too, or cedar or something like that. And it's like, I think I'll buy that. And I'm like, that's not what the tick guy said. Right. And so you're left with, does it really work or not work? And a lot of those things probably are just not quite ready for prime time in terms of tick protection.
Right.
And so you're still at risk. And so that's where we've really switched to sort of, how can we do just-in-time learning? So, hey, Alexa, that's a just-in-time tool. You reach into your pocket, you've got a just-in-time tool.
Right.
So how can we take advantage of that just-in-time learning so that people, I used to do outreach, and we were doing a just-in-case, but we were doing it in people's backyards. So there's a community get-together, and I brought people that could sell them yard treatments or pet products or something like that. And I was like a matchmaker, trying to match that up. And I had a guy there who had helped organize it. He said, Doc, I just want you to tell me what I need to know when I need to know it.
Right.
And for years, I even wrote a blog after that, just tell me what I need to know. I forgot the when I need to know it part. And it's only been in the last few years where I've come back to this just-in-time learning that I realized what he really said to me was, just tell me what I need to know when I need to know it.
Tell me what I just need to know about ticks. And if I'm new and I know nothing about ticks and I move to a heavily populated tick area, what do I need to know?
The entree point probably is you've just gotten a tick, or your kid has gotten a tick, or somebody, it'll come up. Most people, until it happens to you, it's off of their radar.
Right.
But when it becomes on your radar, it's like, okay, so I just got this tick. So the way we've focused on it, we've now developed a QR code that is tied to a thing, and it says, if you scan the QR code, it says found a tick, and it gives you the next 3 things you need to know.
So it prompts you and walks you through.
Exactly. So you either find a tick on your dog or cat, or maybe loose in your bed, or you found something that might be a tick. You need to know that. I mean, we have this crowdsourced tick survey called Tick Spotters, and people send us pictures all of the time, and about 5% of the things aren't even ticks.
Wow.
It turns out that, we're the myth of them falling out of trees. So there are bugs that look a little like ticks. People think they're ticks that do fall out of trees. There are some aphids that fall out of trees. There are weevils that fall out of trees, and people mistake those for ticks. And so you can't get them off of that until you actually have the evidence and say, there was a guy once that sent me a picture, and he said, "You're so full of crap, tick guy, because I sit under this tree in Oregon every day for my smoke break, and ticks are falling out of the trees on my head all of the time." I said, "Please, the next time one does that, will you please send me a picture of it?" He did. The next day, it was an aphid. And I said, "It has 6 legs. It's not got 8 legs." And it's like, how do you get people off of that? So those are the things that we have to just build tools. We have to not just have the tools, but we need to get people engaged with the tools.
Absolutely.
And so that's really a lot of what we've done at TickEncounter, is focused on how do we engage people. And I feel like, a good place to start is like you just asked. I just found a tick from there, or you are doing a risky activity. So we developed a QR code that goes on a trailhead sign that, people asked us, "Do you have a sign?" We said, "Oh, we used to have a sign. We don't have a sign anymore. Could you make a sign?" So we sort of reviewed all of the signs, and some signs, some say, just have a picture of a tick and say warning.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't help me.
Right.
Some of them have too much information that, you read, wear light-colored clothes, apply repellent.
Right.
You're you just loaded the kids, you've driven
Like
20 minutes, you got there, and you look down, you're wearing blue jeans, you don't have repellent, but so the sign's not helpful. And so our sign has a QR code, and you click on it, and it says, "Here's 3 things you can do right now. Walk in the middle of the trail instead of on the edge," because the ticks are on the edge mostly and not in the middle. You could tuck your shirt in. You could tuck your pants into your socks. Here's what you need to look for. So we have a tick finder tool. So I'm in New Jersey and it's May. What types of ticks might I be looking for? So that happens to me. I come home from tick collecting and I ask my wife to check me. She's kind of sick of doing it by now, but she says, "What am I looking for?" So she still doesn't know. I said, it's a little tick now, because your image is, like, I don't know what I'm looking for.
Right.
My perception of what a tick is this, but what a tick that might be active right now is actually this.
That's really important, and I'm really glad you said that, because in my prior interview was the same situation. People are identifying ticks based off of what they think by what they're seeing, but they don't know what time of the year it is. They don't know what, how long it's been feeding. They don't know how long it's been attached to them. They don't know critical information that you guys have. So teaching them the proper ways is really important.
That's our goal with Tick Spotters.
Yeah.
So we can, within 24 hours, we can tell a person what type of tick they experienced, what the likely risk from that tick is for disease. If it's been feeding for longer, ticks change their appearance the longer they've been attached. And so it's like, okay, so, that usually freaks people out.
Right.
It's clear to me that people don't really understand the whole concept of life stages of tick.
The life cycle.
And so the different stages have different levels of risk. So
Right.
oftentimes I get, especially in the early spring, interviewers, their main question is, well, how bad is the tick season going to be this year? And I'm like, anyone in my business would probably say, oh, it's going to be bad, because we know we won't be wrong, because if someone gets one tick, that's bad, right? But it's not really fair. And so I decided, in my whole quest of trying not to promote misinformation, I started saying, well, we need to unpack your question. How bad are ticks going to be this year? Here's what we need to know. Where is your publication going to come out? So it's geographically sensitive.
Absolutely.
And it's important to know what type of tick are you talking about, because it might be a high year for black-legged ticks, but a lower year for another type of tick, or maybe that other type of tick doesn't even really occur in your area or something. And so we need to be really specific and then give you specific guidance and not genericize ticks. So when I hear that, easily think about ticks. When I say ticks come out of my mouth a lot, I'm thinking about black-legged ticks, because they're the ones associated with Lyme disease, and they're the ones that are pretty common around where I work most of the time.
Right.
But I realize that we have to really focus on the fact that different types of ticks transmit different germs, and we really need to know the differences between the species of ticks, also the life stage of the tick, because all of that affects the level of risk.
Well, that was incredible. Very excited to have you as an expert of our Guardians Against Ticks program. We're looking to make a big impact on spreading proper information and really evoking change where it needs to happen.
Well, that's really great. It's good working with you.
Thank you. You too.